You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 418 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Chad Anderson, and if you want to hear about how to cut out the pollution to your health, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. Today it's episode 418, and I have Chad Anderson coming in today from North Carolina, and I'm out here in beautiful Colorado. But before we get into this episode, I'm going to tell you guys know our big why. I think that a lot of times people, they'll listen to podcasts and they don't know why the podcast really exists. But we exist for this reason. We protect freedom of speech. And that's so important with medical freedom today, to know that there is one place you can go to get unbiased medical information, specifically chiropractic information. That's Chiro Hustle. We also protect the sacred trust. If you guys don't know what that means, go to your favorite search engine and look for BJ Palmer Sacred Trust. You're going to learn so much more about chiropractic than you ever knew. And a lot of people don't know about that. So we also support subluxation-based chiropractic, innate intelligence, and universal intelligence. And that we believe that when somebody gets adjusted, it connects man the physical to man the spiritual, or woman. With that being said, this is episode 418. Welcome to the show, Dr. Chad Anderson.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's hustle, man. You've been a chiropractor now how long?
What has it been? About 15 years, roughly?
15 years. Went to Port Orange, Palmer West, I think they call it. No, Palmer East, right?
Yeah, Palmer, Florida.
Palmer, Florida.
Yep. If you're going to go to school for 4 years, doing it on Daytona Beach is not such a bad place to go.
So I read your bio. It looks like you've done like 10,000 things. How did you end up in the chiropractic profession?
So I went to college in Minneapolis, pre-med. Had plans to move on to medical school, likely become a surgeon. Had an opportunity to shadow the surgeon in my hometown as an 18-year-old kid, something that kids today can't really do because of things like HIPAA and whatnot. But I was 18 years old, scrubbed in at the side of an operating table, watching them, take off legs and open chests. And it was amazing what the surgeon was able to do in that operating room. And I wanted that. And I went to college, pre-med, got a Bachelor of Science in biology, studied a whole pile of chemistry, and started taking my MCAT information and started applying to medical schools, and began to see that most of what the medical world was not what I thought it was. I was disappointed. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they serve a great purpose. The surgeons are amazing at what they can do, especially when that surgical procedure is needed. But oftentimes those procedures weren't actually needed. That's what they did, not what they had to do. Emergency rooms. I mean, we have the best emergency care on the planet. It's awesome. You get your leg cut off, I'm super stoked. I live here. But outside of those two branches, a lot of the rest of the medical field really terrifies me. It's not about actually finding and fixing a problem. It's about labeling a symptom and then picking out of the list of 10 million drugs, which one is going to cover up the symptomology so the patient doesn't know they're still sick. And I thought, if I continue on and go to med school, I'm literally going to get fired from every place I ever go to work, because I just adamantly disagree with that whole perspective on, it's not even healthcare. It's sick care. So med school was out, and dabbled in a few things before deciding to go on to what became my profession. Worked a few extra jobs for a couple of years, and then found my way into chiropractic school, when I learned that chiropractic wasn't about treating aches and pains. It's growing up, all I knew about chiropractic was, if I got hit really hard on the football field and Saturday, Sunday were rough days, I'd probably go see Dr. Erickson on Monday, and, he'd make my back feel better. But that's all I really knew about it coming up. And, that's like this much of what the chiropractic profession does, right? Chiropractic's not about aches and pains. It's not even about necks and backs. Chiropractic's about joints. It's about proper motion, proper alignment, leading to proper function. And I don't care if that's in your neck, back, or your foot. We treat joints, and we restore optimal function. We restore peak performance. And that fit with my vision of what I saw healthcare to be.
Yeah, it's important that people have a clear understanding, the difference between emergency care and why that's important, and the convoluted idea of drug care, which is called healthcare. And what we know chiropractic to be is a whole different paradigm. And most people never get taught what chiropractic is unless you, like said, they come into some type of an injury where they're looking to get out of something that doesn't feel good. And they're like, oh, maybe I should try the chiropractor. But like you said, chiropractor, what they do to take care of a person, it's to restore mobility. It's to help with longevity. It's a quality of life quotient. And it's not to say that people shouldn't see a chiropractor from cradle to grave, but it's actually gives them a better chance at having a better quality of life. And as they say, when you do your assessments, activities of daily living, it restores people back to a quality of life where they have better, more fun with their activities of daily living, and they're not in infirmary. And I think what you said is most of the time when people go into find out what's going on with them, they just get some type of solution-based model where they're like, all right, just take this stuff. But they don't realize that the direct effect of that is not feeling good. It kills their motivations. It makes them feel crummy, gives them brain fog, messes up all of their internal organs, and they don't really get better. It's really a bad system. So it's cool to hear that you've gone into chiropractic based on a certain principle that you wanted to actually improve people's quality of life.
Yeah. Yep. And I just didn't see the medical world, for the most part, was doing that.
So upstarts, I know chiropractic upstarts that happen every day. There's chiropractic going to graduate tomorrow. What advice would you give to them on growing a practice and sustaining a practice?
When I got started, I wanted to be able to treat everyone. I wanted to be able to have this huge toolbox that could fix that, this, that, whatever you came in with, I'd have an answer. Because I thought that would make me available to the most number of people. And it took me a while to figure out that didn't work. And then it took me longer to figure out what did work. And the thing that I found that seems to work the best was an idea that I learned when I was out in Puerto Rico when I met you about a year and a half ago. And it was niching down. And, to find that one thing that you think you're really good at, and then to niche down from there and find out what is it within that one thing that you think you're really good at, and then to niche down from there and to find that thing that you actually are the best at. And just become the very, very best guy out there at that one little tiny thing. So everybody searches for you instead of having everybody being vaguely interested in you.
Yeah, I like the percentages. They go up when you become a specialist and people look out for what you do.
Yeah,
and,
getting into it seems like you're limiting yourself. When you're this rookie, you're this new guy, and you don't want to limit yourself. But, in hindsight, we have that, right? we've been in it for a while. We can look back and we can say, hey, that didn't limit us at all. That made us the person that niche was seeking. And there's plenty of people seeking each and every one of those niches.
So let's talk a little bit more about niche health for you. What are you doing personally to keep yourself healthy, to make sure you have optimum health to take care of everybody?
Gotcha. Well, we talked earlier about where I went to school. I went to Palmer, Florida, and I was in the third class that was ever admitted to that school. It was a brand new school. Palmer had hired these teachers that were teaching classes that were way outside their scope, but they wanted to have this one guy because they were the best person that had niched down. They were the best person that they wanted to have for this class later on. And I had the fortunate opportunity of, being one of those few students at a brand new school studying with David Seaman. And the name is well known throughout the chiropractic community. The guy's amazing at what he knows, the things that he understood before anybody was even thinking about it. Inflammation being the root cause of all chronic illness, and it not having anything to do with these things that people are chasing and trying to fix, but it starts in your kitchen. How many people would talk to you about, oh, well, I exercise 3 times a week, or I'll exercise 7 days a week. And that's awesome. I'm glad you do that. But if you're eating Hardee's and McDonald's and you're drinking Coke and Pepsi, why are you wasting your time in a gym somewhere trying to get your health? You're not going to get it, because it starts in the kitchen. Nobody can out exercise their fork, right?
Yeah. I just interjecting here, like 80% of the results in the gym come from the kitchen. And it might sound like a counterintuitive thing, but I would recommend most people just throw away everything in their cupboards and start over.
Yeah.
and go back to the basics again, and find some, if you will, a guru to teach you how to eat clean, and that fats are good for you, and refined sugars and carbs are not good for you, and eat fruits and meats and vegetables, and we're clear.
Yeah, my patients, there's 3 pieces to the puzzle. Number 1, most important piece, nothing else matters until you get this one, is you have to cut off the pollution. I don't care what else you do, you have to cut off the pollution. You can't be eating Hardee's and McDonald's, drinking Coke and Pepsi, Ho-Hos and Twinkies, and expect to get anything good in life from your health. Number 2, I found, is what most people miss. Number 2 is they need to restore the good nutrition to their bodies so their bodies can recover from the horrible things they've done to it. But if you don't have number 1 and number 2, why go waste however much time out of your day or week or month in a gym?
Well, I think you nailed it there. And I was interviewing a guy earlier, another chiropractor, and he was talking about how muscle tone is important to health, but also neural tone is important to health, and organ function, organ tone is important to health. And I think what you were saying, there's a lot of the things that people eat, they're basically eating out of a trash can.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to call it that. They call it food, but it's been it's been renamed because it's not real food, and people they're feeding themselves sick. So what happens now is their digestive tract is all, like you said, polluted, and their blood is not healthy, and they wonder why they're pre-diabetic, or they wonder why they are diabetic, and they wonder why they can't feel their feet. Well, it's because they're feeding themselves sick, and they're eating stuff that isn't food, and they're nutrient deficient, and they're not feeling good.
And they can't figure out why they don't get better taking a walk 3 days a week.
Yeah. And I think it does. It all starts in the kitchen, but it all starts with clarity, and you have to identify the stuff. So I think it's really important for people to listen to what we're talking about today, because we're not trying to, dissuade people from doing what they want. But I think that what's happened is people have done what they've wanted so long, and now they deal with the poor effect of not feeling good and not knowing what to eat. And now they're addicted to stuff that's not good for them.
Yeah, agreed. Deadliest drug on the face of the planet. What is it?
Food.
What drug has killed more people than every other drug combined?
Their diet.
Refined sugar.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it's a horrible substance, and it's found in everything, and it's the leading cause of all of these chronic illnesses that people come into our office claiming that they have, and they want relief from their symptomology, but they want to drink their Pepsi. And they have
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle. Well, I hope that when people listen to this, they realize that they should not eat out of a trash can. And even if they call it food, it's not really food.
good advice.
So let's talk local, man, because I know that you really value where you live and you really value the people you get to take care of. But what are some of the things that you enjoy doing to stay connected with your local community?
Well, I grew up in a little town, northern Minnesota, about 10 miles from Canada. It was a small community. It was a very tight-knit community. And I learned this thing called small town politics. And it's important to understand those things. And even in big cities, I think there's still small town politics in the small communities. But I think as a business owner, it's important to live locally. And that makes a big difference in how people see your business and what you find for value in that community. So, I live in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina. I did that on purpose. When I moved here, I was the only chiropractor for 60 miles, but I was the guy. And, I was treating everybody, but I had a niche. I was the chiropractor. If you wanted chiropractic, you came to see this guy. And that was it. I didn't have to market myself because it was already done. And there's a few more that have moved in around here, but that's fine because I've been here for a long, long time. And so live local, communicate or participate in your local activities. I just signed my son up for his first year of full contact football. It's going to be awesome. So, participate in those local activities and really, truly be part of the community, but not because you own a business there, but because you want to. Then you don't have to work. You can just have fun and work happens.
Yeah, I just wrote down a couple things that you've probably heard this before, that the riches are in the niches.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
Be a chiropractor. That's my takeaway from what you said. And when many people, they tithe to religious involvement, you should also tithe to your local involvement. And some people call me out on this, but I say you have to pay to play. Well, what you pay for is what you get. And if you give your money to local organizations like Schools That Matter, then you're going to be known as the local chiropractor, a local business person that donates or supports financially to area organizations and movements. And without a shadow of a doubt, like, people are going to know that you're the chiropractor that supports the local soccer team. You're the chiropractor that supports the whatever involvement that you choose. You're going to be known for that. But a lot of them, they thrive off of financial support. But what happens because of that is you get to become the go-to practitioner for that niche community. And now they're going to know that they trust you because you support them.
Yes. Yeah. It's important.
Yeah. Lots of good stuff here, man. I want to future pace you a bit. I know you filled out your questions here and you put like 17 question marks on this question, but where do you see the profession going? Like, let's just say in 5 years.
God, I mean, you know, if it became what I want it to become, it would be people opening their eyes and seeing that they need to start taking responsibility for their health. They like these diagnoses and they like hearing that it was genetic because they don't have to take responsibility. It wasn't their fault. They got dealt a bad hand. But, you know, as chiropractors, we want to see that people are waking up and understanding that, well, you know, maybe that's not exactly the truth. Maybe, you know, I need to take some responsibility for where I'm at in the world. Maybe I need to take better care of myself. And like we said before, you know, that starts in the kitchen. So, you know, I'd like to see that chiropractic is just blowing up. It's starting to be seen everywhere. It's the go-to treatment for people. But I think as a profession, we all need to work harder on getting onto one page. You know, for example, you can go to a dentist anywhere in the country and you're going to hear the same spiel from every dentist out there. Chiropractors, we wrestle with that, man. And I don't think we have to. I think we just need to get on the same page so that when we teach the world what we do, people are hearing the same mantra. They're hearing the same. Everything is the same no matter where they go, so there's no confusion. It's where I'd like to see it, but I don't know where it's going to be. We live in a fast food nation, and our profession, chiropractic, we are limited by the health of our patient. You know, if our patients aren't healthy, I mean, what am I going to do with my hands? If we're adjusting sick people, there's only so much we can do. So, you know, I think it's a lot of education is required. We need to teach people about the importance of eating right, living right, sleeping right, in order for our profession to really take off.
Yeah. You know, I played college soccer and, you know, we had to like, before we got like the opportunity to get a ball, we had to prove that we could run. And the first like week of like pre-season, we had to run. We didn't get a ball. We had to prove that we deserved a ball. And I think that we have to go back to people about, you know, taking care of their bodies. We have to go back to the basics. We have to have people prove that they will do something to make a positive impact in their life before they get the good stuff. And I know that every chiropractor, if they could, they just give away adjustment after adjustment after adjustment after adjustment because it's a give, love, serve profession. But the big picture is you are right. We're dealing with a health deficiency, and it's not for lack of people wanting to feel better. It's just that the solutions that they've been given are very poor. And the avenues that they've been given are not health. So I think what we're talking about today, it could go back so much to like, what are you putting into your body is what you get out of your body. And you got to go back to the basics. Eat well, think well, move well, sleep well, get adjusted. There we go. Episode's done. You know,
like sounds like you've been hanging out with James Chestnut.
Well, I think he was a major inspiration for a lot of people. The only thing that he didn't mention was the adjustment. You know, he's like, eat well, think well, move well. And I'm like, well, what about the adjustment? Like, that's the primary.
We'll include that in the move well.
Well, spinal health is so important, and mobility of the spinal joints is so important, because what happens is when somebody finds a chiropractor, guess what? They need some mobility in that spinal joint, because what's happening now is it doesn't feel good. So their building blocks are they're poor. They built their body on sand instead of on a solid foundation.
Yeah, and they have the perspective that the pain is their problem, when in reality the pain is it's their smoke detector. It's the greatest gift you were ever given. Of everything you were ever given, Pain is the greatest gift you were ever given, because without it, you would not know that there's a problem. So when you go to medicate it, you essentially pull the batteries out of that smoke detector and you go back to bed. But the house is still on fire and nothing good is going to come from that. And that's one of the reasons that so many people get into the horrible predicaments that they're in, that lead them to become surgical patients.
So we got about 7 minutes left on our episode today with you. Let's take a little bit of time, but not too much time. But tell us some of your heroes. And if you could sit down with anybody for an hour and have a meal with or just talk to them, who would it be?
Yeah, I kind of changed up my answer on you a little bit. I know you were looking for a hero. But if I had 1 hour to sit down with anybody and talk to them, I would love to be able to sit down with the person or people who actually make decisions for the healthcare that is provided for the branches of our military. It's where I live in North Carolina. I'm surrounded by 3 gigantic military bases: Camp Lejeune, Fort Bragg, Seymour Johnson. I mean, I'm smack dab in the center of it. There are all these military folks around us, and their access to chiropractic care sucks. I mean, it is so limited on what they have. Last time I checked, Camp Lejeune was about 30,000 active duty Marines, and there was 1, maybe 2 chiropractors to treat them and their families. And that's not right, man. We talked earlier about chiropractic being not about being about aches and pains, but being about proper motion, proper alignment, proper function, or peak performance. I mean, that should be all over every single branch of the military. And the men and women that serve in our military, those are the heroes. But I'd rather help them and talk to the people that make decisions about what kind of healthcare they have access to.
Yeah, I think that's such an anchor statement. Is you were talking about earlier, if you take care of a vehicle, how much longevity you get out of that vehicle.
Yeah.
And you're talking about how this turns into like human life, and how if we took care of like our servicemen and women, how it could help the longevity of their careers.
Yeah. Instead of them, getting medically discharged because of their chronic low back pain, they wouldn't respond to any treatment that was available to them in the military because they never had a low back problem. They had a problem with their feet and ankles that was causing a compensation in their stride, which was appearing as pain in their low back, but their access to whatever physical therapist or medical doctor, PA, nurse practitioner, whatever on base couldn't see anything past their low back. I would love to see the day when there was a handful of chiropractors every single military base worldwide, and we could treat these guys and fix their problems so they didn't end up with medical discharges. And I've lost track of the number of retired servicemen and women that I've treated with medical discharges that no longer have medical problems because I fixed it. They're still going to get a check every month for the rest of their life, and I think they've earned that. And shame on the military for not sending them to me so I could have fixed them and kept them in the service and kept their wisdom that they, of all the things that they had learned over the 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years that they served. And I mean, that's the wisdom is priceless. And I think that's who I would love to spend my hour of time with.
Yeah, I think that's a great response. I've never heard that over 1,075 interviews. So really, really clear, great model of idea. Maybe we can see what we can do to make that happen.
An hour with the man.
But or woman, yeah. Yeah, because they make the world go round.
We have to be inclusive.
You're right. So wrapping up here, one of my favorite segments of this show is to have people give mission stories of hope. And I know a lot of times people come to chiropractors, like we said, they don't have the best behaviors or best attitudes or the best habits. But since you've been a chiropractor 15 years, I know that you said that you're smack dab in the middle of 3 major military bases. Do you have any miracle stories or anything that you might want to share with us today that might inspire people?
I tell you what, one of the most profound things that I've done with all these military folks was it was a result of a mistake. It's I was participating and training pretty hard for a lot of Spartan races. You ever done any of those?
No, I have not, but I see that people enjoy those things.
Yeah, have a blast. And I was working hard, and I had modified my diet, and I had eliminated a lot of the sodium from my diet, basically cut it out because of all the hypertension things that I was seeing with patients. And I didn't think it was possible to create the kind of deficiencies in these essential electrolytes that I actually provoked in myself. And I depleted my sodium levels, I depleted my magnesium levels, and I locked up, started just spasms, and it was pretty bad. And I restored my sodium levels and my magnesium levels, and I saw a lot of resolution to it. And so I started studying on those topics a little bit. Now you see and you hear all of these diagnoses of PTSD. And these men and women get put into therapy and they get medicated and they spend the rest of their lives that way. But clinically, I don't think that bad event is the problem. Clinically, I've seen that I believe the bad event is the trigger. But the problem was the nutritional deficiency that prevented their brain from correctly processing that horrible event. So not to minimize their horrible events, because many of them are very, very traumatic. But if the event was the problem with PTSD, and I threw 100 Marines into a bad event, I would have 100 Marines with PTSD. But I don't. I maybe have 50. So it's got to be the trigger. So I kind of took what happened to me and applied it to these men and women that I was treating. And I've seen nearly 100% positive reaction to restoring magnesium levels in men and women with PTSD. And it doesn't always go away because some of those things are pretty bad. But 100% of the time, they get remarkably better. I mean, I've been hugged by more burly retired Marines than I would ever admit to in any lifetime. But just restoring the nutrition so the brain can do what the brain was designed to do reveals amazing results. But they don't have access to that information on base. So I would love to be able to take what I know and be able to provide it to more of those people. But that's the most amazing miracle, I think, if you want to call it that I've seen clinically in my practices, is to, take a guy who, and he's got to basically lock himself down on the 4th of July because he freaks out. But now this year he got to take his kid to the fireworks, and you gave him his life back. And that's amazing.
Man, great close. Appreciate you being my guest today, episode 418. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I don't know. My head's kind of swimming. So I'm just sitting down and talking, but it's what I do for a living. We talk to people. We share our life stories. We share our experiences. We share what we know so we can all become better, right?
Mm-hmm. So if people want to learn more about you or reach out to you, what web resources can we send them to?
Well, my office email is Duplin. That's D as in dog, U, P as in Peter, LIN, Chiro, CHIRO, @gmail.com. And my Facebook page is Duplin County Chiropractic Center.
All right. Well, Chad Anderson, thank you for being my guest today on episode 418 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. It was a great conversation about all things health and all things chiropractic. And I want you to have a great rest of your day out there in Duplin County, North Carolina.
And thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's been good.
Yeah, it's a great episode, and I just want to have you have a great rest of your day. And thank you for sharing.
Take care.
All right, bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.